Welcome to Mind Meets Body and Soul, a podcast that connects the dots between clinical mental health and spiritual holistic wellness. I'm Heather, a licensed clinical social worker and mental health guru.
And I'm Devon, a Reiki master, spiritual teacher, and lover of all things woo-woo. We're here to discuss various wellness topics, highlighting the connection between the mind, body, and soul.
We'll be offering nuggets of wisdom from each of our fields with the ultimate goal of bridging the gap between our two worlds. Whether you lean more into cognitive psychology
or flow with the woo-woo waters, our intention is to help you prioritize yourself and unlock a fresh perspective to healing, growth, and expansion. We're so excited you're here. Let's jump in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mind Meets Body and Soul. I think this is episode 13, right, Devon?
Episode 13, yep. Heading into our third month of this podcast.
So exciting. It's so good to see you, Devon. I feel like we haven't had as much time to chit-chat and see each other. So how are you doing? What's going on?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, I know we haven't had that much time to chat, just been busy lifing. I just got back from California, as you know, and I was there for the weekend last week, there for the services of a friend who just passed, a celebration of his life. One of my childhood best friends, her boyfriend, passed away. So it was a beautiful, emotionally difficult, challenging weekend, but one that was very healing and, just reminded you of the beauty, the preciousness of life.
Thanks for sharing that. I was thinking a lot about you guys, and I can't, imagine the pain and, the heaviness that came with the weekend, but I'm appreciative and happy to hear and not surprised to hear you talk about it being a beautiful healing opportunity to really feel those feelings. And that's part of our human experience, right? Like life is tragic and hard and, inevitable. So you're here.
Yeah. I'm here. There was so much love, so much gratitude that came from that weekend. So happy to be home, to have had that beautiful weekend spent with friends and whatnot. What about you? I see that you are in a different location than we usually recorded. Where are you?
I'm actually in the same office. I'm just facing a different wall. We got behind me, you can see there's like a door here. The door used to be a window. So last week we had a contractor come and the door now leads to our backyard. So I'm here in the same space. I'm just facing a different wall now.
Well, the door looks great. And I like that
Thanks.
bookshelf that you have behind you too.
Thanks. I got it at a thrift store. It was $10 and I painted it. It was like white and chipping. So I painted it and now it's cute and brown.
Amazing. Love a good thrift find. I'm always amazed by those who have that. I feel like it's a gift. Like thrifting is a talent or a gift that you have that others have. And I want some of that. So I'm going to have to get some tips from you.
We'll go. I'll take you. I love a good thrift store. I feel like everything I find is a treasure. So we'll go thrifting.
I love that. And speaking of tips, that brings us into this episode that we are recording right now, episode 13. We have dedicated this episode to a Q&A. So Heather, you had posted a link, right, for our viewers, our followers on Instagram to submit questions in regards to anything wellness, mind, body, soul, what you and I do, any personal questions. And from what I've heard from you, we've gotten back some funny, some interesting questions or comments, along with some that are directly related to wellness. So I'll let you take it from there. What do we have?
Yeah, we got a wide variety of questions. We won't be able to get to all of them, but we filtered out some of the good ones. Not that they were all good, but we filtered out some of like the most important ones. We had to prioritize some. So, first up, It says, would love to hear how you both recommend improving your self-talk. Love the pod. Love learning more about you both. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, I mean, that's
Cute.
self-talk. That's an important topic for sure. You want to start with that one, therapist Heather?
Sure. I think kind of like what you just did at the beginning in sharing about this like really hard emotional weekend that you had, you reframed it and you looked at it from a different perspective. So I think with self-talk, I read this book called The Untethered Soul, and one of the early chapters they talk about this inner roommate that we have, and it's kind of this like voice that just like, I think about the Charlie Brown voice that's like wah 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 wah, like in the back of your head all the time. Mine is incessant, she never stops. But I think it's like a combination of just hearing it and trying to determine, like, is this true, is this real, is this me talking, or is this a voice that I adopted from a parent, from society? But also then like reframing, like taking that thought and looking at it from a different perspective. So, okay, like, yeah, maybe I'm really unhappy today in my body image, or I'm having a really bad body image day. Can I reframe that in any way to gratitude? Can I be grateful that I have an able body? Can I be grateful that I can go outside and like see the sun and feel the warmth on my body? And can I be grateful for my body for doing what it's doing today? So just looking to like reframe self-talk from like a negative perspective, but also not believing everything that your brain says because it's a frequent liar.
We have said that before, that our brain, our mind lies to us all the time. So that's a great tip. And it brings me to our conversation last week with Michelle when we were talking about the
Mm.
unconscious, right? And how most of the time I feel like those thoughts that arise, they're coming from a sub or even unconscious part of ourselves, right? Like sub or unconscious programming. And so reframing is a conscious act, that conscious awareness of, oh, who's speaking, and can I choose, or do I choose to reframe these thoughts or this criticism into something more conducive? So I love that. Love that suggestion.
Yeah. So that would be my tip. What about you? What do you think?
I mean, going off of that, I like that question of who's talking right now, because I think of, and this will have to be a conversation for another podcast too, but I think of the different voices in our head. We have multiple voices in our head, but two of the main ones that I'm thinking of are our ego self,
Mm.
which is the part of us that is that more critical, that more protective, that everything's about me and the way that I present myself to the world, the way that the world sees me, right? And so the ego voice within our head tends to be the one that, without our awareness, has the most control, as opposed to our, what I consider to be like our higher self voice, the intuitive voice. The higher self voice is more loving, is more nurturing, is more compassionate, right? So sometimes we have these two voices in our head that kind of like go back and forth at each other. I don't know, kind of like that symbolism of like the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, or, that the devil can sometimes be the ego, right? And then the angels are higher self that's like love and light. We are perfect just as we are. And then our ego self that says, we're not enough. We have to keep doing more, like work, work, work. So, getting an idea of which voice is speaking whenever I find myself criticizing myself, judging myself, I recognize, okay, that's ego talking. And I actually have a name for her. So, my ego's name is Debbie. And anytime that critical self talk comes up, I'm like, all right, Debbie, calm down. We're doing the best that we can here. Like you have to bring that awareness to who is talking and differentiate. Give that alter ego a name. I know that you've given your anxiety a name. It helps to
Mm-hmm.
personify those voices within our head or those different aspects of us, so that at any given time, we consciously know, okay, this is my ego speaking. This is my
Mm-hmm.
anxiety speaking. Or this is my higher self or my more aligned, the person I really want to be. That's who wants to be speaking right now.
I love that. I think it's definitely easier for us sometimes to personify these things, the self talk, the inner child, right? Because like then we can have this conversation. I tell people all the time, talk to yourself because you're doing it no matter what, whether you're consciously talking back to that voice in your head or not, it's talking, it's in there yapping away. And we have to try to regain control and be the one leading that conversation or changing that conversation or shifting, reframing that conversation. Because otherwise, it's just going to keep on talking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question that we received there. Really important, really difficult because we're also taught in society, or we are conditioned in society to compare, to judge
Mm.
ourselves, to judge others. It's a natural human instinct too to make judgment. And that is really harmful when it comes to ourselves because we tend to be our own worst critics. So I think that that was
Mm-hmm.
a great question. And I would love to, spend more time down the road in an episode. We can talk about self talk.
Yeah, it's a process. The last thing I'll say on that is that like it takes time to really like get back in the driver's seat in your own mind and in your own brain. So be patient, be persistent, and just like keep working on it because it took time for it to get to this like negative place, assuming that that's what this person is asking. Um, it took time to get to this place, and it's going to take time to unlearn that a little bit too.
Beautiful. All right. What do we have next?
All right. The next one says, how do you practice openness or how do you work on becoming more open?
There's
I
a
think
bunch of
this
different
is a
ways
good
that we
one,
can
Devon, for
interpret that.
you to answer.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go first.
Okay. So my mind automatically goes towards like openness with like, in the spiritual aspect. A lot of times when I'm working with clients and their crown chakras, the read that I'll get is like, it's not that you're closed off, but you just don't know what to look for. Right. So with the crown chakra and that openness, our connectedness to the world around us, to the universe, to whatever higher power, oftentimes we don't realize that there's so much support, there's so much guidance available to us that we're not just stuck in our, linear logical minds. And so a lot of that is about intention. We talk about intentions. I use intention setting with my clients. I know you use it in your field as well, like setting the intention of being open, setting the intention of receiving support and guidance, whether that is from other people or whether that's from some source of divinity, whatever you choose to believe in to connect with. I think intention is a big part of it. And then this also goes along with what you've said before. It's all about opening your eyes and looking around you, looking for the signs, looking for the synchronicities, because there are so many of them. We've talked about in the episode, on spirituality, that it doesn't have to just mean angel numbers, right? Like, doesn't have to be the repeating numbers. Those are some of the most obvious ones, but it's also just paying attention to the people that are coming into your field, the opportunities that are coming to you. Openness is a more of an act of receptiveness, just being in a place to receive.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think like it's interesting because we probably want to feel like we're doing something to be open or practice openness. Like, okay, check, I did this thing, check, I did that thing. But it almost is like you're saying, like, we're just being, we don't have to be doing to be open. I'm thinking like there's this type of therapy called motivational interviewing, and it's very much focused on like meeting the client where they're at. And if they're not open or ready, like just being in that space with them and exploring it, practicing curiosity, I'm often digging around to try to find a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of buy-in. So if you can't 100% be open to the fact that like you're an amazing person or that you are successful in your job, what can we buy into? What's like the first thing that you can, like, you don't have to 100% believe it or 100% buy into it, but where's there a little wiggle room? For example, successful at my job. If I can't be open to the fact that like I'm a good employee and I'm a successful person in my career, can I buy into the fact that like I show up and I give it my best? Yes or no? Can I a little bit believe that? And like that's where we want to start with, like, where's the tiny little like step forward? And then we'll step forward from that. And then we'll step forward from that. And before we know it, we have opened that door and we're walking through it. But first, we've got to start by like cracking it open just a little bit.
Ooh, that is so good. I've never, sorry, what was that called again? Motivational.
Motivational interviewing.
Wow. Never heard of that one. I love it. I think it's so difficult. Like people say, I want to have peace, or I want to have more peace, or I want to experience more love. But that feels or seems so unattainable to somebody just starting out their healing journey, or wherever they are. It might feel unattainable. And so then you kind of feel a little defeated, like, well, why should I even try, because I can't even see it. So I love, love, love that little like
Mm-hmm.
baby step that you take. Okay, well, can we find one thing to just inch you a little bit closer?
Mm-hmm. Also, too, like figuring out, there's this thing called a readiness ruler where it's like, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, how ready am I to be open to this thing or to make this change? Then on a scale of 10, 1 to 10, how willing am I to do something to be open to making this change? Readiness, willingness, and confidence. The third one is confidence. So, how confident am I in my ability to be open to this change or make this change? And I think like unpacking and digging around in there sometimes gives us some good information. Like maybe I'm really ready, I'm really willing, but I have no confidence. I'm not
Mm.
confident in my ability to do so. That's where we start. That's where we're going to get in there and do some of that work. Or maybe I'm pretty confident, but I'm not willing. Like I don't want to do the work to make this change or be open to that. Then that's where we start. So we just have to dig around in there and find a teeny tiny little like hole or crack that we can get in. And then we'll just keep going from there.
Awesome. And that's to piggyback off of that. That's a very like conscious, practice or reflection that you're doing. There's also the energetic component of it too that I firmly believe in, that and I find this with my clients when I work with them, because ideally, right, they would come to me first session, we dig in deep, find what's there and heal it, like take it out. It's gone. No more healing to be done. As you and I know, there are layers to that. And so what I always say is that your body energetically will only take you as far as you are ready to go.
Mm.
And so that openness, like how ready are you to, or how confident do you feel, how, that's a more on that conscious level. Subconsciously, unconsciously, there's also a part of you that's working behind the scenes that is like, okay, I'm ready to unleash this part of my healing journey, my healing wounds. I talked about with Michelle how like it wasn't until the second session with her that I got to the deepest seated wounds that I would be healing from for the next 2 years. Here we are now, right? But prior to that session, I had had another session with her, and I had, I think, like 5 years of Reiki healing where we didn't even touch on that subject of my adoption, of my abandonment. And I think back to it now, like, well, why? And I realized that I wasn't ready. I wasn't mentally ready. I wasn't emotionally, energetically ready to deal with some of those deeper seated wounds. And that wasn't necessarily a conscious choice. And so for those of you who are like consciously like, well, yeah, I think I'm ready. I maybe I don't feel confident, but like, why wouldn't I, you know, be ready to open up to whatever it is? know that there may be like a sub or unconscious reason as to why you're not ready. And that's okay. You meet yourself where you are. And when you're ready, you're ready.
That is like a perfect segue, I feel like, into the next question that I was thinking of actually using for this segment, because I think you're kind of already like alluding to it a little bit. So I'm just going to say it. So the next question says, do you have trust issues and how do you practice starting to trust? Do you want to touch on that while you're like kind of in the midst of what you're going through and what you're explaining?
Yeah, I would love to. So it's interesting that that question came up because trust was actually the number one intention that I had set in the beginning of working with Michelle. So 2 years ago in August, that very first session, I told her that I set the intention of trusting inherently. I wanted to learn to trust in myself. I wanted to learn to trust in relationships that I was in. I wanted to learn to trust that the universe was supporting me, that I was guided, that I was in the right place because I didn't have that trust. So, to answer that question, do I have trust issues? A past version of me absolutely had trust issues. And the present version of me is still working through some of those trust issues because it's a daily, conscious effort to remind myself to trust because it doesn't come natural to me. It doesn't come
Mm-hmm.
natural to so many people who have experienced, I mean, we've all experienced hardship and challenges. We've all experienced trauma in one way or another. So we are given very solid reasons not to trust. And so the second part of that question was, how do you work to trust? Was that the question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for me, it was doing this healing work, understanding who I am, why I am the way I am, right? So a lot of the reasons why I think, feel and act the way that I do stem from my past and stem from my past wounding. And so the journey to trusting is not an easy one, but it is possible. You have to go through a lot, like swimming through the muck of the ocean and getting those answers to the question that you're asking, why don't I trust, to get to a place where you're at peace first with where you are, with what has happened in your past, and then looking forward to the future with this sense of, I don't know, I guess confidence that you have the tools and resources to take on whatever is happening for you coming up. Or if it's trust in another person, it's trusting that they know what's best for them. That was a big one for me too. I didn't trust that other people knew what was best for them or that other people could take care of themselves without me. Right. So it all comes back
Mm-hmm.
to the self first, learning to trust yourself. And then naturally, you begin to trust others and trust outwardly more easily.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is really important because, like, this question, do you have trust issues and how do you begin or how do you start practicing trust? It's a complicated one to answer because trust can mean so many different things. And there's so many areas of our life to trust and practice trust, trusting our body, trusting ourself, trusting others. And then, like, how much we trust that person too, right? Like, do I trust you to have my best interest? Do I trust that you have your own best interest in mind? Do I trust your ability to keep me safe? Like, there's so many different factors. Do I trust you to take care of me? Do I trust you to show up for me? Do I trust that you're going to be loyal? Like, there's so many areas. So to me, it's like, yes, of course I have trust issues because I've been burned. And I think trust issues is that protective mechanism or that alarm system in our body again that's going to be hyper aware and hypersensitive. Like, be careful, tread with caution. People have hurt you and people probably will hurt you again. So I don't know that trust issues are necessarily a bad thing. I think they're protective. It's what we do with them that matters and affects us. So, how to practice trust, I think, is like reflecting again, being curious. Like, what aspects do I trust this person with? Do I trust myself? Like, it's really, again, like digging in around there and really trying to be curious. I joke sometimes that I feel like as a therapist, I'm like a toddler. I'm like, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Like, why don't I trust you? What is it that I don't trust you with? Or why don't I trust myself? Why don't I trust my body? Where is that coming from? Like, asking all these different types of questions, I think, can be really, really helpful in understanding like what are the roots of this and where it's coming from. How is it protecting me? And then how, if at all, is it serving me? Because a lot of times it might be trying to protect you, but not serving me, because it might be holding me back from starting relationships. And then I'm lonely, and that's not good for me either. Does that
Right.
make
Yeah.
sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Such a good point. And you kept saying the word protect, and that just made me think that at a basic human level, we need safety. We need to
Yeah.
feel like we are safe. And so everything that we do, speak to, like, we're always just trying to come back to this place of safety. And so, as you were saying, like, if you've had past experiences where you've been burned before, where your trust has been broken, right? You're always going to be seeking that safety or coming back to that safety. So we are constantly, our mind is in a constant state of trying to protect us. I mentioned before the role of the ego. The role of the ego, while we see the ego sometimes as this like pesky, like devil, not enemy, not really our friend, it really is like the overprotective mother or father that just wants to make sure that we are safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
the question of do you have trust issues? I think every single person in one way or another can answer that and say, yeah, I do have some trust issues. Whether that's trusting myself to make the right decision for me, whether that's somebody else treating me right, as you said. So that's a very important question, too.
Yeah, I really liked that one. And it worked well actually with the flow of this, because I think like we first started out with like the self-talk and what are we thinking and what's going on in our brain. Then we talked about like being open, like even being open to like new ideas or new concepts, but how do we trust ourselves, others, to be able to be open, to be able to have, these different relationships and things. So I think there was a lot of interconnectedness between these questions.
Absolutely. And then I know that you
The next,
mentioned we got some like funny random ones that had nothing to do with mind, body, soul, well being. So I figure we might as well close out this episode answering some of these ones and see what comes up.
sure. This one says, do you have any tattoos?
Ooh, I do have a tattoo right on the back of my left shoulder. I was in Thailand and in Chiang Mai, and I got a what's called a sakyan. It's in translation, a mystical or magical tattoo, and it was done by a monk. So very special, very cool. My only tattoo to date.
So fun. Was it like a stick and poke one or?
Yep. Yeah. So it was a stick and poke one, and it's called the English translation, a 5 lines tattoo. So it's
Yep,
5 lines. And actually, I found out that Angelina Jolie has the same exact one. Also got that
that's
in
fun.
Thailand. Yeah. So it's a 5 lines tattoo, and each line is a chant written in like ancient
Mhm.
Cambodian language. And each line represents like some level of like safety or protection. So, like, your good fortune. So I wasn't super spiritual at the time. And it just now it makes sense why I have it.
You're going to love this. So I do have also a few tattoos, but the one that I'll explain, I also got in Thailand as a stick and poke.
Oh my gosh.
I did not know that you had that or that you went to Thailand even. So that's funny that we both have another synchronicity here.
What's
Mine
that
is,
tattoo?
I don't know if it's I don't know if you pronounce it as a unilome or unilomi, but it's, or none of the above, but it's, it represents your journey through life. So like, I'm showing this for the people that are watching. If you're not watching, I'll explain it too. But you start here, and it's basically like it symbolizes like the ups and downs, and life has, life ebbs and flows. And then at the top here, this is the top, even though it's upside down because it's the top. If I were showing it to you this way, it's the straight and like narrow, where you're like enlightened and you've reached this place of like your higher self, and things, even out and become beautiful. So it's all these different like squiggly lines. And it was also a stick and poke done in Thailand.
I love that. I've also never heard of
And
it
it's
called a stick and
spiritual
poke.
too, in the sense. Yeah. Well, I don't know what you actually call it. It's like the bamboo, like tick, 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 tick thing.
Wait, that is
It's
so
probably got an
cool.
actually better name. Yeah.
All right, what other tattoos do you have?
I have one on my arm that's a rose and a piece, like, and a heather flower I got with my sister. We're matching. So her name's Victoria Rose and I'm Heather. Duh. So it's a rose and a heather flower.
Oh.
I have one on my foot that says, it's the infinity symbol, and it says family, like the basic person that I am. That's it, I think.
Awesome. Look at that. We're learning new things about one another too through these questions.
I know. These are fun little like icebreakers for us.
They are.
Let's
All right.
see.
Yeah, let's see what else we got.
You want to do one more?
Yeah, let's do one more.
What is one thing you can't survive without?
You know, it's so bad. Originally, my like thought would go to my phone. Like, I can't survive without my phone. It's so bad. Let me think. Do you have one in the meantime?
Well, my first thought was my dog Tortellini, and I don't know if my husband would be upset by that, but I couldn't survive without him either. But she's like my little pal. Does that count? Does it have to be a thing?
You know, I was thinking like a physical object, but this works too. You can say tortellini. You know, what I was thinking about with in terms of a physical object, it was like pen and paper. I'm a journaler. I
Hmm.
love journaling. I love just I need to get my thoughts down on paper. That's the way that I process emotions, the way that I express myself. I love writing. So if it isn't my phone, which I would rather it not be, because I can be without my phone, and not a live object, which obviously I would pick my dog Ellie too, then I'm going to say pen and paper.
Okay. I like that.
I loved this
I think
episode
that's a
for
good
the
one.
ways that we were able to, speak to various really important wellness topics and also get some inspiration for, what future episodes could focus on. But I also
Mm-hmm.
love this episode, and this episode was your idea. So I thank you for that too, because it's a way that we get to know each other on a more personal level. And hopefully those listening also feel like they're getting to know us on a more personal level.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a fun little way to kind of break up a lot of the topics. Some of the topics we talk about are really fun, and then some of them are tough and heavy and emotional and tiring. So I think that this was a good one to be able to have a little fun, get to know each other, but also share some of these fun things with our audience too, and answer their questions. Like, I loved to hear what you, our audience, wanted to learn more about or hear more about. So it was fun to see a blend of like wellness questions, but also like icebreaker, get to know us questions. It was cool.
For sure. I think what would be a great idea too is if we kept this link going, maybe posted it in our highlights of our Instagram page, Mind Meets Body and
Okay.
Soul, so that at any point when somebody, when our audience, when you're listening to this episode or any other episodes and you have a question, just head on over to our Instagram page. In the highlights will be the Q&A link. And so you can drop your questions, comments, concerns right there.
And for those that don't have Instagram, always email us. It's just mindmeetsbodyandsoul@gmail.com. Like, absolutely, we'd love to hear from you in that way too. So keep the questions coming. We love it.
For sure.
So before we wrap up, Devon, I know you have some exciting, fun things happening in your business. So do you want to just take a minute and share that with us?
Yes, thank you. I would love to. I just launched my newest offering. It is called Align 8-week chakra series. I had been receiving a lot of feedback, a lot of questions about the chakras, the chakra system, the energy centers of our body, what they were, what they govern, how to work with them so that we are experiencing more balance and flow and purpose in our lives. And so I'm really excited to offer this 8-week series to those who are interested. I just posted it in my Instagram page and Facebook page. The link is now live for people to enroll, and it'll just be a really informative 8-week series where we meet once weekly for 90 minutes at a time. And each week we'll be focusing on one chakra at a time. So there are 7 main chakras. We have 8 weeks. The first week will just be an introductory week. And I like to see this series as like a chakra detox where we learn about each chakra,
Hmm.
and each week we're working intentionally to open and align our chakras. So I'm really excited about that one.
I love that. I attended your Instagram live the other day, and it was really, I mean, just that like 30-minute discussion was very informative. And I think the chakras are something that like is tangible and a fun thing, but also like important. And I love being able to practice intentionally week to week, working with and really getting to know yourself and in that way, aligning with each chakra. Very cool.
Yes. Very cool. Thank you so much for joining that too. And yeah, I have a lot of material on my Instagram page on the chakras. I just did an Instagram live. So for those of you who are interested, I love teaching to the chakras because it's something that we all have. It's something that, we can all work with, regardless of whether you are an energy healer or not. We can all learn to work with our chakras to get to know who we are and how we're made up and how our daily thoughts, decisions, actions really impact us and those around us. So I will leave everybody with that. Heather, did you want to look up at your vision board today? Is it your turn or my turn? I think it's yours.
I think it is mine too. And I have a picture of it because it's not in front of me. So let
Hmm.
me get it. Let's see. What is standing out to me today? I have a little thing here on it from a Little Words Project bracelet that I got, and it says, "The words you tell yourself matter." And that's what's standing out to me today.
Could not have been a more perfect reminder for what we've spent this episode talking about.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's a good one. So, just your reminder, the words you tell yourself matter. You matter. We're so grateful for you taking the time to listen to us, to share your questions with us. And we're excited to keep recording and keep having these discussions to share with you.
Agreed. Thank you, Heather, for another great episode. And we look forward to being back next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
We're so glad that you took the time to share this space with us. We'll be releasing new episodes of Mind Meets Body and Soul every Tuesday, so be sure to give us a follow and share this podcast with those you love.
To connect with us and join our communities, head to the show notes where you'll find our contact information and individual websites. Until next week, stay grounded, keep growing, and trust that everything you seek is unfolding for you.